Welcome to the critique. So today we're looking at a transcript from content creator Nakonor. It's from a daily political commentary video, a very high energy one to say the least.
Yeah, high energy is one way to put it. I mean, it's this intense monologue that just rockets from the Epstein files to Kid Rock to ICE hearings. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And I think that's a good place to start, actually. Let's just jump right into the first point. The material's heavy reliance on, well, pejorative slurs and these really extreme ad hominem attacks, it just significantly undermines the authority of the analysis.
Right. And you see it immediately. I mean, we've got terms like retards, leftoids, and he even tries to get around one slur by calling people a bundle of sticks.
Which draws even more attention to it.
Exactly. Now, I guess the intent here is probably to energize a specific base. You know, people who really enjoy that kind of transgressive talk.
Oh, for sure. It definitely does that. But the problem is that it creates a boy who cried wolf effect. Because when he gets to legitimate factual claims, and some of them are quite strong, like the FBI report on Trump and Epstein, they're just buried.
They're buried under all that vitriol. So you're saying the actual evidence gets dismissed because the delivery is so hateful.
Precisely. The listener just tunes out. They hear the slurs and they write the whole thing off as an emotional rant, not an analysis. And the rigorous evidence, like those FBI notes or the ICE statistics he cites, it just gets ignored by anyone who isn't already a superfan.
So what's the suggestion then? Tone it down?
I'd call it a strategy of ruthless civility.
Ruthless civility. Okay, I like that. So you're not attacking the person's identity, you're attacking their actions?
Yes.
With data.
Yes. You let the absurdity of the facts speak for themselves. You don't need the name calling. Let's take that ICE hearing segment as an example.
Okay, yeah. The part with the representative who wants to abolish immigration enforcement?
Right. So in the transcript, the host just calls her a retard. It's a cheap shot, but if you look at the material, he quotes her saying, "I understand American immigration much better than you."
Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty arrogant quote on its own.
It does all the work for you. You just present that quote, and then you contrast it with the statistic he mentions later that 70% of deportees have no criminal record. You put those two things side by side, and the listener connects the dots. The incompetence is obvious.
You don't need the slur. The data becomes the weapon.
Exactly. The data does the assassination. Same thing with the pedophile party stuff. Instead of just shouting that, which is pure hyperbole,
Right.
just focus on the contradiction he points out in the text. The fact that the FBI report notes Trump was the one who called the police on Epstein back in 2004.
That is a devastating fact for the opposing narrative.
It's incredibly devastating, and it doesn't need any extra insults to make it sting. It stings because it's a fact that cuts against everything people have been told. It shifts the entire dynamic from just shouting insults to, showing undeniable contradictions.
And it makes the host sound like the credible one, which ironically makes the critique itself so much more effective.
Okay, so that leaves us to the second major point, the structure. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. The whole thing just feels disjointed, right? The narrative structure lacks any cohesive transitions. It's like a doom scroll in audio form.
Yeah, I really felt that. It just jumps. You go from the Epstein files, which is, heavy legal news, and then bam, you're in a pop culture debate about Bad Bunny versus Kid Rock.
Then ICE hearings, then voter ID, then back to some fraud case in Minnesota.
It's like having 20 browser tabs open and just clicking between them randomly. It's exhausting, and you can't really absorb the gravity of any single story, like that judicial sentencing in Kentucky.
Yeah, with Judge Tracy Davis. By the time you get to that, you're still mentally processing the halftime show. So the suggestion is to reorganize this. Group the content into thematic blocks.
So like a segment on national security, then one on cultural values, something like that?
Exactly. And then use bridge transitions to explain why you're moving from one topic to the next. Build a cumulative argument.
Okay, so take those Minnesota stories. There's the $3.5 million fraud tourism, the IRS employees who owe taxes, and the squatter in the mansion. They're all just kind of scattered right now.
Right. But imagine if you group them together. A single segment you call, say, systemic exploitation. You lay them out one after the other. It paints this powerful picture of a system that's just breaking down. It's so much stronger than just 3 random crazy stories.
And what about that jump from Epstein to Bad Bunny? That seems like the toughest one.
It is, but you can build a bridge there too. Frame it around cultural priorities. You could say something like, while the media is desperate for you to focus on the Super Bowl halftime show, here's what they're trying to bury in the court files.
Ah, so you make the distraction part of the narrative itself. That's smart.
It gives the listener a roadmap. It tells them why they should care about this sudden shift in topic.
That also reminds me of the pacing around that Minnesota stabbing story. That felt off.
Very off. The text goes straight from this awful tragedy to a Darwin Award joke about the victim's politics.
It was really jarring. It makes the host sound callous, not analytical.
It absolutely does. The simple fix is to just separate them. Let the tragedy land first as a serious news item. Talk about the human cost. Then you can pivot to a separate, serious analysis of the political activism and the potential consequences of certain policies.
Which kind of brings us to the logic of the arguments. I felt like the use of these absolute generalizations and just wild hyperbole, it often weakens the actual facts that are in there.
That's our third critique. The text is just full of straw man arguments. Claims that the opposition loves when children get raped or wants us to die.
It's so black and white, and it's a shame because, like we said, there are strong data points in here.
Exactly. Like the poll saying 84% of Americans support voter ID, that's a huge number. But it's immediately followed by the claim that the opposition is against it literally because they cheat.
And he just leaps right over the logical gap there.
He misses a huge opportunity to actually dismantle the other side's stated arguments, which would make his own case look so much more robust. The suggestion here is to use the Steelman technique.
So you state the strongest version of your opponent's argument, and then you take that down.
Precisely. Acknowledge their stated reason, like, say, accessibility issues for voter ID, and then use your evidence to destroy it.
So instead of just saying, they cheat, you'd say something like, okay, they claim this is about accessibility, but then how do you explain this specific case of Lena Maria?
Yes. Use that example of the illegal immigrant who voted in 2024. Use that specific data point to anchor your emotional conclusion. Make the link explicit.
I see that with the Kentucky judge story, too. The text says Judge Tracy Davis reduced a sentence because the defendant hasn't mentally matured. The host's immediate jump is, the left is the party of rape.
Which is such a weak leap. It's just an insult. A much stronger critique would be to focus specifically on that judicial philosophy, on the idea that a court prioritizes a perpetrator's maturity over a victim's safety. That's a much harder argument for anyone to defend against.
And what about the invasion narrative with the Somali state representative?
Prime example. The host just calls them names, but the quote is sitting right there in the script. I actually lost white population. They left.
That's a stunning admission.
It is. Just analyze that sentence. Let her own words prove the point about demographic displacement. Don't cover it up with insults. When you call them names, you're letting them off the hook. When you analyze their words, you're holding them accountable.
That's a really powerful distinction. It feels like the host has all the ammunition they need in the research, but they're choosing to just throw the gun at the opponent instead of actually firing.
That is a perfect analogy. And speaking of throwing things away, let's talk about the last critique point, the audience focus and all the meta-commentary.
Oh, yeah. This is something you see a lot. The creator complaining about the platform, about censorship, about their own victimization.
And it just lowers the production value so much. He's constantly breaking the fourth wall to complain about YouTube guidelines, or he mentions his contact at YouTube or jokes about getting banned.
There's that whole section where he explains why he says bundles of sticks. It's all about how his contact warned him about bullying policy.
And it completely shifts the focus. It goes from the news, the reason people are listening, to the host's personal struggles with YouTube's terms of service, which frankly is irrelevant to the Epstein case.
And it makes the show feel defensive, doesn't it, instead of authoritative?
Absolutely. It sounds like he's asking for permission. The suggestion is simple. Just remove all of it. All the references to the platform, to demonetization, to the educational purposes disclaimer.
Just present the content.
Present the content as if it is undeniable truth that stands on its own. If you have to explain your code word, the code word has failed. Just critique the policy or move on.
And that intro, too, it's always nice to take the unpopular position and get unbelievable amounts of threats.
Cut it. It's self-congratulatory. The listener is there for the news. Start with the FBI report. Respect their time.
Even that transition, this is my almost seemingly daily show.
It's so hesitant. It's wordy. It needs to be a confident assertion of what the show is. This is the daily critique of the American decline. Something bold. Don't be meta.
So it's really about tightening the whole thing up. Less noise, more signal.
So, to just quickly recap here. First, elevate the vocabulary by removing the slurs to build credibility. Second, Organize the chaotic topic list into thematic pillars to build a real argument.
And third, anchor the hyperbole in facts. Use that Steelman technique. Show, don't just tell. Use the specific cases to prove the systemic failure.
And finally, just get rid of the meta-commentary. Stop talking about YouTube and start talking about the world.
I think the actionable takeaway here is really clear. I'd love to see the creator try rewriting just one of these segments.
Yes. Take the icy hearing, or maybe that Minnesota fraud story. Rewrite it, but strip out every single ad hominem insult. Focus only on the direct quotes and the numbers. Just see how much more devastating the argument becomes.
It's really about having the confidence that your facts are strong enough on their own. You don't need the insults.
Exactly. We invite the listener to submit that revised script for follow-up. We would love to see how that shift in tone works out. Thank you for listening to The Critique.